Hello and welcome to the inaugural reinstallation of my language laboratory. This is a collection of books that I've been building for years and years and years that has followed me all around the world. If you've been watching my videos for years, you might recognize some of these from behind the first videos I made in California or in Singapore or in Dubai. This is a collection of books and other materials that are devoted to the actual learning and study of languages, and so I tend to keep this in my office. And the books that are behind me in the videos that you've seen that I've been making recently, those are the books for reading that I keep at home usually. So I've had this collection of books, don't have enough space in my home to have everything. It's been boxed up for a while, and this room here is what we call the den that my sons used for their games and books and some of their old toys. But since they're both off at college now, I thought I would repurpose this room, and I've been trying to organize these books here, but it's a really hard task to get them set up appropriately and sorted out and everything. So I'm very grateful to Sheng Hao, my administrative assistant from Singapore, who's behind the camera right now, helping me film this and who helped me set this up over the past week. So thanks very much, Sheng Hao. So yeah, this is a collection of books and materials for learning languages that I've been collecting for maybe over 30 years, some of them. It goes back to, I think I've got some stuff here from maybe even from college days, from graduate school. I certainly started collecting a lot of books when I was in Germany. When I was in Germany in my postdoctoral years, some of the happiest hours of my life were spent in a place called the Mediathek at the Humboldt University, which was this kind of place. It was a special library, language learning laboratory, only for textbooks and manuals and dictionaries and grammars and all sorts of recording materials for learning languages. And I just thought that was the most wonderful place in the world. I really, really enjoyed spending time there and exploring different languages and finding new materials and all sorts of things like that. And if I hadn't been inspired to build a collection like that of my own, I think that was the genesis of that. And so what happened to me a couple of years later when I was in my first professorship at Tandong University in Korea, this was in the late 90s, maybe back in 97 or so, it just occurred to me, I'm a really lucky man. I've got a decent salary, and I have no debts and no expenses, and I'm obsessed with learning languages. So let me collect all the language learning materials that I can. I'd really like to have a Mediathek or something of my own, not so much just for my own study of languages, but really just to have in one place all different kinds of things as a resource center to share with other people. And so that's what I'm really excited to now make and offer this. We're going to give you a library tour of this. These books here are not things that probably most of them I'm ever going to use again, or if I ever did use them on my own, but I'd much rather share them with other people and let other people know that they exist, and particularly people in my academy can somehow come here and borrow them, or maybe, I don't know how digitization works or something, but I am inspired to show and share this collection, which is, I think, quite possibly may well be the most extensive collection like this in the world. I'd be happy to be proven wrong. I'd be happy to see a collection that's larger and more extensive and be shown that, but to the best of my memory, the collection at that wonderful Mediathek at the Humboldt University, I think they had in the mid-50s, maybe about 55 different languages. And of course they had many more volumes of things. They had was a much larger collection than this, but in terms of extent, I think they had about 55 languages. Whereas we just counted these today, and it exceeded my memory. I've got materials here for 155 different languages. 155 different languages. Some of them I have multiple materials, lots and lots of stuff. Some of them I just have one book or something to get a scratch for. One thing I will say, if you have followed my videos for years and you've seen these kind of things in the background, this collection actually seems a little bit smaller than it used to be, and that is because in the past I had particularly all these assimil type sets that came with the book and the tapes or something in a box. And I kept the box and I kept all the tapes, and so I probably had to have about a third or half, 50% more space like this to have all the audio material as well. Unfortunately, I realized over the years that the tapes that I had were really becoming obsolete, and it was getting more and more difficult to find tape players to play them on, and a lot of them were somehow degrading. I would play a tape and it would, something had somehow deteriorated, the sound quality was there. So I realized it was really necessary to digitize them all as soon as I could. So I've digitized everything, and then once I digitized everything, I said, do I need to keep these anymore? And it was a very, very, very difficult decision, but as you see, this is a big, large, heavy thing to move around anyway, and if I can't play these tapes and I've got them digitized, I thought, no, I should get rid of them. So I got rid of most of those. I kept a few lone survivors, but that was a very difficult decision. I think sometimes it was a wrong decision. It would be just nice to have them, but there it is. So the tapes have all been digitized, and this is the collection.
If you kept all your tapes, would there be even more languages?
No.
Okay.
I didn't get rid of anything. I digitized everything. Everything. So I mean, I didn't not get, I'm not going to keep this anymore. I only digitized things, and I had very few things that were like all audio on tape. I had, some things that were on CDs, and I did keep most of the CDs, but I actually, in that window of time in the late 90s and the 2000s, I think tapes were still more common than CDs, and I actually prefer tapes to CDs for language study. They're easier to use and go back and forth, even maybe than MP3s. It's kind of a shame they're not around anymore, but maybe I'm just addicted to them. But it was fun sort of copying tapes and making your own copies and stuff like that. So I had a lot of, not only the tapes that came with, say, given Asimil course, I still have this here, but also the tapes of my own that I'd made copies of and done things. So, but I digitized all the tapes that I have, and I didn't lose anything in that regard.
Okay.
So again, what happened back in those days in Korea was that was sort of in the early internet time. All that you could do really was look in online stores and stores, and so I just searched widely and bought pretty much everything that I could find, everything that I could get my hands on for all the different languages under the sun that had materials that were available for them. As I mentioned, I had been already collecting books before that, mostly for my own use. So I had books that I was actually studying and using. At this stage, I built this large resource collection, and I have kept doing so, but I mean, in that maybe 3 or 4 year period, 97, 98, 99, I probably bought everything that I could locate at that time, and then I subsequently got more of a family life, where I did have expenses and debts and stuff, so I couldn't quite afford to keep buying so extensively, and there wasn't, as I could tell, that many things that I had never got my hands on. I've always kept my eyes and ears open. I'm still, if I find something new, I do add it to the collection. I'm happy to sometimes people write to me and they say, hey, I found this, and they know I've got a collection like this and they'd like to donate it here, so I'm happy to accept donations. As I set this up again, I also noticed there are strange gaps. Things have disappeared over the years, and I don't always recall loaning things to something. So if you're the kind of person that has ever visited my library and borrowed something and you still have it, please let me know, because there are a couple of mysterious absences that I'd really like to track down, some really rare books. So I think that is a good enough overview and introduction. Or should we start walking through the languages?